The Free Agents podcast contains mature themes and adult language. Any discussion of gambling is for entertainment purposes only. Please abide by all laws in your location regarding gambling.
This should be our intro. Can we start?
This week on The Free Agents.
I remember back in the day reading an article about Mike Webster and how he got destroyed physically, and how and when people even reached out to him, like Bradshaw and Mean Joe Green, and just offered him money, he was just so far gone they couldn't help him. And this is what the NFL, this is what playing a gladiator-type sport for many years will do to you.
The sport will continue to suffer because parents will stop enrolling their kids in football when they're youth, and that can really hurt a sport over the long term. We've seen it in baseball.
I think we forgot just how much education and practice went into a guy like Andrew Luck, and we're starting to see the cream rise to the top.
Welcome to the Free Agent Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Smarge. Joining us this week, as always, via Skype, LJ. LJ, how you doing this week?
I got a concussion.
Oh, no. You're a bit concussed, huh?
I got concussed watching that Frontline special. Good Lord.
Yeah, well, you definitely didn't fall asleep watching it because it was very compelling stuff.
League of Denial, the NFL's concussion crisis. This is just, really, this is the big tobacco situation. This is everything. This is an issue that the league is now finally dealing with Paul Tagliabue looking really bad after watching the special. He was living in denial. And he just looked bad coming out of this thing. He just did not want to do anything about it. He hired people that he knew to basically help cover it up. It's just, this for years was a problem. I remember back in the day reading an article about Mike Webster and how he got destroyed physically, and how and when people even reached out to him, like Bradshaw and Mean Joe Green, and just offered him money, he was just so far gone they couldn't help him. And this is what the NFL, this is what playing a gladiator-type sport for many years will do to you.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that there's a connection here. I think there's still, there is still science to be borne out by this. Science hasn't totally pinned down the exact link between these things. But I think there's enough evidence from what I saw that seems credible to suggest that there is definitely a strong correlation here, with these injuries and and football and concussions related to. And the really scary thing that sort of came out of it is that, they talk about, people focus on the idea of the big hit, and the NFL has tried to get some of those big hits out of the game with different rule changes and stuff. But the fact is you're getting knocked around for an hour on the field every day you play, and they don't know how much that's really causing this as well. All the times you get knocked around and you're not knocked out, you don't see stars, there's no stoppage for injury or anything. Are those little, like they say, those sort of quote unquote mini concussions, are those also adding on to this? They still have a lot to figure out.
Well, if you look at the linemen and the linebackers, the guys that were in on the every down where banging your heads against each other, each other. Those are the guys that took it the worst. The smaller guys that deliver the bigger hits, those are like, they're like knockout punches. You go down, you have time to recover, you're taken off the field. But the center is lining up every down against the nose tackle, and they're butting heads against each other. Nobody's getting knocked out. And like you said, that's an issue too that they need to look at, is the long-term overall just rattling of the brain for an hour every week. Is for 7 to 10 years of your life? Is that worth the $25 million, $30 million you're going to make over that span of a career? It's risk versus reward.
That's exactly it, LJ. And it's not just those 7 or 10 years that you play in the NFL. Most pro players started playing when they were kids, right? I mean, that's, or in high school and, their talent was discovered or they stuck with it. To me, the most sickening, elements of this story are just, and I'm not that surprised. We've seen this sort of play out in not just in sports, but in all elements of our society so many times where we have this powerful organization, with wealthy, powerful people behind it that are so hell-bent on maintaining, that product and protecting their profits. And I understand that. But to go and ruin people's lives, not just exploiting the players and ruining their lives, but, smearing doctors, all this stuff that, that you'll hear about in the, that they talk about in the documentary is just, it's just awful. It's just dirty.
It makes Tagliabue look so bad. And actually Goodell comes across as better because he's actually trying to deal with the fallout from all the denial. I mean, Tagliabue donated the money to BU. He's been out there trying to get ahead of the story. He's trying to manage the problem for the owners. So they're at least acknowledging the situation. There was I would call it a small settlement. $765 million is not a small amount of money, but in the grand scheme of things, I consider it a small settlement.
Well, it is fairly small when you look at the scope of the problem, LJ, and the money, that we need for research and for care for these.
But like you were saying, the science hasn't been fully decided. So I'm thinking that the lawyers for the players, took an actual look at what was out there and what could be proven and said, you know what, man, this might be the best we can do. Because it's not concrete yet. There are issues and there are problems, but they haven't figured it all out yet. And nobody's in denial anymore that bumping your head an inordinate amount of times is going to hurt you. They just don't know the extent. They just don't know if it's certain people. They don't know if it's, there are still questions up in the air. But this is definitely a situation that's moving in the right direction to protect people at least. But then it's also going to come down to the fans. Are we going to keep living in denial? Are we going to keep watching these games and cheering? I mean, the fans cheer the hardest for the touchdowns, but they cheer the second hardest for the hits.
You're right, LJ, and it is, I'm the first person to admit it. I think we're perfectly willing to admit it. I mean, that's the visceral, sort of gripping quality of the product is that it is so violent. I mean, it's just like you go to a NASCAR race and you want to see your driver win and stuff. The fact is the most compelling part of a NASCAR race is when there's a wreck. That's what everyone watches. Everyone rubbernecks on the highway. There's, it's part of the human curiosity.
It's the old quote of the guy that I forgot who said it, but the reason we go to a Mike Tyson fight is not to watch the art of boxing. It's the smell of death in the air. It's the fact that this guy could kill the other guy with one punch. And we go out there because we want to see this visceral stuff. We like the nastiness. We like the hitting. We think if we think a hit is clean, like, oh, that was a clean hit. It was a vicious hit, but oh, that was a clean hit. If it's not dirty, if it's not behind the back, we think it's okay. But that stuff just hurts. I mean, these guys are shaking. Bumping your head is no fun, man. I remember getting punched right in my head, get spun around. It's not And these guys are doing that on a regular basis. They're being compensated. Like I said, millions of dollars are being exchanged. But the NFL still has the worst labor agreement for the players. They can be cut at any time. They're exploited. The franchise tag. So if they get hurt or if there's any kind of long-term, they get that franchise tag for 1 year. All right, there's your money for 1 year. Bye. And then they're told to go away. Hurt. You don't cash in like you do with baseball. The amount of money Derek Jeter's made in his career versus the amount of money an above average wide receiver makes in his career. Two totally different things. These guys can be cut at any time. A baseball player gets compensated for what they're doing, and they're all getting that advertising revenue. It all comes out of our pockets eventually.
Yeah, we pay for all that through ticket sales, through ad revenue, merchandising, all the money that we as fans put into it. is what fuels this thing. If we weren't watching and we weren't going to games.
So are we going to continue to support this stuff? Are we going to continue to tune into ESPN for our dose of NFL highlights that include massive hits? Are we going to keep tuning into these? Now we have a Fox Sports national network. We have an NBC. Everybody has their version of ESPN now. All these, there's more money now to be had by these leagues than there's ever been before, because there's now more sports networks to deal with. So there's a ton of money out there. The fans are the ones that ultimately decide where they're going to spend their money. Are we going to continue to spend it, and are we going to continue to be hypocrites and watch these guys just destroy themselves week in and week out for our own enjoyment? Is the money enough? Is that what I'm saying? Is the millions of dollars they're earning enough to satiate any kind of guilt that the fans will have?
As long as the product is on TV and accessible to fans, they will watch it. It is such, and for exactly what we said, it's such a visceral thing. Like, it's so compelling every week for us, and it's so ingrained in our society. But I think what President Obama said may still be true, even though fans aren't going to stop watching, that this game, or at least the game as we know it, 10 or 20 years from now may not exist. Because what will happen is, this is what will happen, LJ. One of two things will happen. Either they will change the game enough so that it's a lot more of an arena ball kind of game, and fans will either accept it or they'll stop watching. Or the sport will continue to suffer because parents will stop enrolling their kids in football when they're youth. And that can really hurt a sport over the long term. We've seen it in baseball, right?
Well, Malcolm Gladwell talked about it. It's not baseball. I don't know where you were going with the baseball thing, but I think the talent pool in baseball is just getting better, not worse. I think baseball is killing it in the talent department.
Right, but in the United States, LJ, youth participation in baseball has been declining for decades, and viewership has been slowly declining as well. A lot of the talent we see, LJ, is coming in from other parts of the world where baseball is viewed differently.
I don't know about that. I mean, Mike Trout and Bryce Harper are both American-born players. We have some massive talent in baseball right now. It's just a matter of marketing with baseball, I think. They don't put their highlights on YouTube. They don't market to the young people. I mean, if you want to talk baseball, that's a whole different scenario. I think football is going to suffer from well-off families forbidding their kids from playing the sport. I think that you're going to see kids that, is Yale going to have a football team in 20 years? The first football teams that will be at the most prestigious universities. Will Stanford have a football team? Stanford has a huge medical program. Yale has a huge medical program. Will those two schools, Stanford's an Ivy League school. Let's be realistic. Will those two top of the line institutions continue to have football programs knowing what they know? That will be the litmus test, I think.
I think so. I think, at the end of the day, for an Ivy League school like Harvard, as much as football is part of their tradition, their school, is it really that big a part of their school? I mean, they're Harvard, but getting Ohio State to give up their program, that'd be another story. Getting Penn State to stop playing football.
Harvard has a longer history than Ohio State does when it comes to football.
But it's not as big a part of their business of the school. They don't take in the same amount of money that they don't have those kinds of TV contracts, LJ. They don't get as much TV money as a big program.
You're right about that.
And then ultimately that's what administrators look at, LJ. It's always a business, even when you're at a school.
Well, it's Stanford. Stanford will be the real test.
Yeah.
Stanford gets money from tech. Stanford gets money from medical. Stanford also gets money from football. And that'll be the real test. Will a school like Stanford, a top-of-the-line educational institution that also offers top-of-the-line sports, they can actually be the leader in something like this? Stanford could actually be a leader of something here. Somebody has to take a lead in this. I mean, there's an actual problem. I mean, Malcolm Gladwell called football. He compared football to dogfighting back in 2009 in his article. It's a shame he wasn't involved in this documentary, because he's the reason why this was the tipping point. Speaking of Gladwell, this was the tipping point for what happened. I mean, Gladwell worked for Grantland, and the guys that talked about this worked at Grantland. This started at ESPN. ESPN may have backed out of it at the last minute, but their fingerprints are all over it. So, are well-off kids going to be playing football?
I think less well-off, less and less rich kids, quote unquote, well-off kids will be enrolling. You're right, but I think that trend will continue through all strata of our society. Eventually, over time, I think even parents. I understand you want to play. You grew up poor. This may be a way out. That's not, selling drugs and that kind of stuff. And you want, I get that, it's very compelling. And that's why a lot of these people are, that's why it's so exploitive, because you have a very small number of people who actually get the opportunity to play as professionals, and everyone else just wrecks themselves in high school and college, and have, they have nothing left when they don't make it. So. Well,
that's what Ed Reed said. Ed Reed said, yeah, I'd never had this opportunity to play and do what I was able to do and help my family if it wasn't for football. So, yeah, I took some knocks on my head, and I may have some issues when I'm older, but I feel good about what I did to help my family. But a guy like Johnny Manziel, whose family has oil money and a ton of it, doesn't need to get his head hit over and over and over again and end up with a concussion and drooling when he's older and all these other problems. He has no reason to do it other than a desire to win and compete and play. So, I mean, are the Manziels 20 years from now, a family like the Manziels 20 years from now, going to let the next Johnny play football?
No, I don't think so. And I don't think Ed Reed's family 20 years from now is going to let, the next Ed Reed play football either, LJ. This is my point, is to Ed Reed's point is that, yeah, that's, you helped your family out. I understand, that makes sense to me and all, but how happy is your family going to be about that when, in 10 or 20 years when you can't construct a sentence, or you're suicidally depressed, or something awful happens as a result of these injuries? How happy are they really going to be? How much are you really doing for your family in the long term? That's
the trade-off is living in abject poverty versus living with brain injuries. I mean, abject poverty versus brain injuries, which is worse? I mean, that's like saying, all right, which way do you want to get raped?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's awful. It's all just awful. And I think we can do better in society, just as, in terms of just having opportunities for people. And in light of that, I would really urge anybody, if especially if you're a parent and you have kids, but even if you've got family members or whatnot who play contact football, really, I urge you to watch this documentary and really just think about it with an open mind. And, especially if you're parents and you have kids in Pop Warner, or you have kids in high school football, go and talk to the coaches, talk to the people who run the programs, and ask them, what are you doing? How are you teaching these kids to tackle, stuff like that? What steps are you taking to reduce the risk and propensity of concussions in your game? I urge everybody to really just take the time and decide for yourself. I don't want to tell parents how to raise their kids. I don't think that's right. That's just a good way to piss people off. But I ask you to just decide for yourself, really give it some thought. Watch this documentary. I think it's fairly unbiased and objective, and really gives you an insight into the kind of trauma and damage that I believe can occur, by playing these sports. So I think that's, gonna cover it for,
and then put a hoop on the above the garage. Get your kid a basketball and some good sneakers, and teach them how to dribble and shoot, because the NBA is the future.
It really is. It really is. And they have one of the largest international brands too, next to the NFL. So the basketball needs, I would love to see basketball do like a weekly format like football does, and build up the hype for like a weekend series. Instead, let them play 3 games each weekend, and that's it. And then hype them like they do football. I think the NBA has enough marketing savvy
to create something to fill a void if football does start to fall off. But that's the future. Now let's be hypocrites and talk about our fantasy football teams.
Yeah. Well, before we move on to our own hypocrisy, I do want to mention here that in not exactly 2 weeks, roughly 2 weeks, about a week before the start of the season, we will have our second annual NBA League Roundup. We'll be bringing back our very own Stephen A. Smitty, who did the first one with us last year and did a great job. We will be running that out in addition to our regular sort of weekly podcast in about 2 weeks. So everyone stay tuned for that. Keep an eye out. We will be sort of hyping that up for you. So
and we may have a special fantasy basketball expert that I'm working on getting too.
Ooh, a special guest, LJ. I haven't heard anything about this.
No, it's a guest I was talking to yesterday about participating in it. We just need to make sure that he's not working that day when we have the podcast.
Oh, that'll be great, LJ. That will be excellent.
Because fantasy basketball, we all participated in Schmitty's Fantasy League last year.
Yeah.
And I think we're all going to do it again, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're definitely going to do that again this year.
So we got to start talking fantasy basketball and talking about who's going to do what and all that other fun stuff. But first, let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly in our fantasy teams this year.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have the ugly, LJ. So I don't know. Do you want to talk about my team first? Okay.
Like a good poker player, Joe Smarge, where are the holes in your game?
Well, there were some serious holes in my game when I went to draft. And I think it's most of the things that we hit on, like 5 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago. We talked about this a little bit after the draft is, I think I did all right. I think my first pick was great. I think Reggie Bush was a good pick, but at the end of the day, I just whiffed on all my receivers. Like I don't have a legitimate number one wide receiver. And the first guy I picked for receivers was Roddy White, and obviously he hasn't done anything. So, and ultimately Eric Decker has really been my best receiver, but not necessarily all that consistent. So.
Let me, well, there's your hole right there. You didn't pick a number one receiver. Either time you went with a number two receiver. You didn't get a number one guy. You didn't get the first target of a quarterback. You went, Eric Decker is not, Peyton Manning's first choice.
No.
And Roddy White is not Matt Ryan's first choice. So when you don't get the first choice, you're getting the bridesmaid. You drafted a couple of bridesmaids. You didn't get any brides.
Yeah, I definitely did.
And when I'm looking at my team, I drafted Dez Bryant and Randall Cobb. Those are a couple of sweet brides right there.
Yeah, they've been doing really good this year for you. Those are definitely some quality picks this year.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at it, I mean, even in the 20-team league, I was in a 20-team league, which I'm sitting undefeated in right now. I ended up with a bride. I ended up taking a sleeper bride in Deshaun Jackson, who's having a killer fantasy year in that offense. And I was able to get LaShawn McCoy and DeMarco Murray, and then Tony Romo's been my saving grace. And then I have the Chiefs D. So I've been in there. I got lucky. I mean, I rolled the dice with the Chip Kelly experience, and it's paid off so far.
Well, there you go, LJ. I mean, I think for me, most of my errors were ultimately a result of just preparation. And, the day we did that draft, Frenchie and I were planning on, we were heading off to the tribe, to the casino afterwards. And so I was just not really that well prepared. And I kind of went with the default sort of Yahoo rankings. And I think that's how I ended up with guys like Roddy White and stuff. But also a lot of those top receivers went very early. I was like the 8th pick. So I went running backs first. CJ Spiller has not quite been as good as I hoped this year. So that's, I've gotten some production out of him week to week, but he hasn't been that consistent. Buffalo is
you're not the only one that got killed by the running back thing this year. Everybody has gotten destroyed by running backs underperforming. Running backs across the board are underperforming. The fantasy trend next year is going to be wide receivers. Next year, you're going to see probably more wide receivers go in the first round than you did this year. And let's stop with the BS. Jimmy Graham is not a tight end. Jimmy Graham is a wide receiver. Yeah. He lines up more on the outside than he does on the inside as a tight end. The designation just needs to change already. And Jimmy Graham is going to be probably a legit number one pick next year, or a first round pick, I should say, not a number one pick. but a legit round 1 pick next year, Jimmy Graham will be, without a doubt. He'll be, I'm saying it now. Jimmy Graham, when the projections are out there, Jimmy Graham is going to be in the first round.
Well, there you go. There's your fantasy advice for next year. We'll make sure we save that clip, LJ. And we'll take that out next August.
Yeah, you can use that on August 13th of next year when we do our first mention of fantasy football.
We do our early fantasy roundup.
We can quote me, and I'm sure there's plenty of quotes from when I was wrong. So, football, Smart. You're looking forward to any games this weekend?
Oh, let me take a look here, LJ. I just had a brief look at these games. I'm looking at all the spreads. Let's see here. First of all, let's start off first of all, we have we're going to jump around here, but for me, as a Pats fan, obviously, New Orleans at New England, is going to be a hell of a game this week. It's going to be a really interesting test for New Orleans and for New England. And we may have Gronk back, so that might be the difference.
Yeah, we're waiting to see what the Gronk's got. Let's see. I'm waiting. This is a game where I wouldn't touch it if I was a gambler, but as a football fan, I'm waiting to see what the Gronk's got in the tank.
Yeah, I don't really like any game action on that game. But it's just, I sort of undervalued New Orleans this year. I thought they were going to not be as outstanding. But they're a much better team in the Dome. We know that. So.
Well, they were good outside the Dome last week.
They are good on the road sometimes, but statistically they are a much better team in the Dome. So
yeah, but I think New Orleans is legitimately good this year on both sides of the ball.
Oh yeah. Oh, they definitely are. They're a legit team this year, no doubt.
I think they're the second best because they're playing better on the road than Seattle does. I think New Orleans might have the edge right now, in the NFC for best team. I think they have a slight edge over Seattle right now because I think New Orleans plays better on the road. Seattle has issues when they leave the 13th man, or the 12th man, I should say. I think they have some issues.
I think Seattle D is really good though on the road and at home.
Wow, they didn't look that good against Indianapolis last week, and that was on the road.
True that.
Let's just say it now, ladies and gentlemen. Andrew Luck is good at football.
Yeah, I think Andrew Luck is definitely starting to prove himself as a legit quarterback in the NFL.
I think Andrew Luck already knew he was a legit quarterback in the NFL. I think we were in denial. I think we get infatuated with those quarterbacks that can run. When we got to realize, that a guy that was trained as a drop back passer, that excelled at the Manning Academy, that trained under Harbaugh at Stanford, I think we forgot just how much education and practice went into a guy like Andrew Luck, and we're starting to see the cream rise to the top with a guy like him. When Russell Wilson is having some issues this year, when Colin Kaepernick is having some issues, when Robert Griffin is looking like a bad impression of Cordell Stewart, when you see all of that happening, and then you see Andrew Luck and Chuck Pagano doing what they're doing in Indianapolis, you go, oh yeah, this is the guy that graduated at the top of his quarterback class. This was the guy. So now we're starting to see the cream rise to the top.
Certainly. Now a lot to do has been made about Ahmad Bradshaw's being injured this week. Do you think that affects their game this week as much as some people may suggest?
Nah, I think Donald Brown and Ahmad Bradshaw, one or the other. Trent Richardson's there. It's still gonna come down to the offensive line play. It's still gonna come down to if Indianapolis's defense can still do what they've been doing. They've been surprisingly good. I'm like, wow, Indianapolis defense is better than I thought they were. That's what I was complaining about. If you go look at the clips from the beginning of the football season, I didn't think Indianapolis's D was going to be as good as it has been. That's been more impressive than the other stuff that I've seen.
It's going to be a good game for Indy. Now the lines is sort of interesting. I mean, it's basically hovering around to pick 'em here, but it opened at San Diego as a 2.5 favorite, and it looks like today San Diego is the 1.5 underdog. Or in some places you can get it as a pick'em. So there's some value for Indy there, I think, even on the road. I don't know.
This was what I'm looking at. ESPN has the lines from all the different online sites.
Yeah, that's what I have here on the covers site.
And Bovada's at plus 2.5 now for Indy. And Bet Online is at minus 1.5 for Indy.
Yeah, it's all over the place. So I think it varies.
Depends on who's betting what, really.
Yeah, it depends on where certain bettors, certain books are getting more influxes of Indy or San Diego money. I think there's even as basically as a 1.5 point favorite, I think Indy's still good value there. I don't see a lot in San Diego. I still don't.
San Diego's been surprisingly good. Their offensive line is better this year. Phillip Rivers standing upright is a much better quarterback than when Norv Turner was around.
True that. I mean, any quarterback who can stay on their feet and has a good line in front of them is going to be a better quarterback.
We remember Phillip Rivers was pretty good at one time.
We
gotta think back to, when he was, but he was pretty good at one time. That's the Monday night game, which actually is probably going to be a really good Monday night game. It's probably going to be better than the Sunday night game. Is poor Dallas going to be able to recover from the wow game against Denver? That game was just full of what the frig just happened here?
That was insane game to watch.
And the Redskins haven't won a game yet, and Dallas just is coming off this gut punch of a game. The Cowboys are favored at home on a Sunday night by 5.5.
Yeah, I don't think Washington, as much as I'm not a Dallas fan and I don't like Tony Romo in the clutch, Washington's so bad and they're such a mess. I just don't see how they can beat Dallas in Dallas.
Dallas is going to put a hurting on them this week. I hope Dallas comes out mad and and takes it out on Washington's bad defense.
Yeah,
look out. I think Des Bryant's going to have 10 catches for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Well, if you're right about that, LJ, then the over might be good here. I mean, it's at 52. But if Dallas just sort of runs amok and Washington tries to play catch up, and since the Washington D can't really do anything, you might get a huge total in this game.
The Dallas defense can't do much this week either. That was Dallas's defense's fault, not Tony Romo. I mean, Tony Romo threw 3 touchdown passes in the second half to bring his team back from a 35-20 being down 35-20. So it's not Tony Romo's fault. That was Dallas's defense's fault.
Oh, I agree. This, in that game, it's definitely, you can't put that one on Tony Romo, and he did everything he could to get his team back in that game. But nonetheless, I think they're going to walk all over Washington this week. So it's a rare week that I'll sit here and tell you I like Dallas.
Since I have Romo and DeMarco Murray and Des Bryant on fantasy teams, I've sort of embraced Dallas this year.
Okay, fair disclosure.
Yes. I'm embracing Dallas this year. There's a lot of points being given to Tennessee. 14.5. Is Seattle capable of scoring that much against Tennessee?
I don't know. Let me get some Tennessee defensive numbers here real quick, LJ.
Yeah, but look at total defense, total yards leaders.
They're in the middle. They're just a little bit above the middle of the pack. They're 12th overall.
Yeah.
And let's see. So, yeah, I think they might be able to limit Seattle there if Seattle struggles. But again, Seattle has the 13th man advantage here. That home advantage is big.
But is it a 14-point advantage?
No, but in the minds of public money, I think it is. That's why the line's so high. Because people are just slamming Seattle.
People always slam Seattle at home. This is one of those contrarian plays where you might want to go throw some money on Tennessee. There's a whole contrarian philosophy out there. Wherever the public's going, go the other way. There's a guy that writes. He's got a whole website dedicated to it. I don't know if it's Teddy Covers or not. One of these guys has a whole contrarian website out there where they say just go against what the public's doing. Last week the public was slamming the Falcons, and the sharps, the guys on the inside were all betting the Jets. Hell, if I had some money, I ran into French on Monday night at a poker game, and he asked me if I wanted any money on the game tonight. I said, nah, I ain't got any extra to bet. I wish I had, because I was all in on the Jets, and they killed it on Monday night. Killed it. I missed an opportunity. So
yeah.
He looks over at me and he goes, man, you had an opportunity? I said, yeah, you know.
Yeah, well, it's tough when you don't really have the
I didn't have any extra
dosh
funds. I didn't have any extra funds at the moment for gambling. I was like, this stinks.
You need a loan. We gotta get a loan. We gotta find a loan shark somewhere in town or something, LJ.
Yeah, I know. One of those last minute guys to come and bring me some gambling money. Yeah, that always goes over well. Borrowing money to gamble. Yeah, never do that, people. That's a public service announcement.
Yeah, stay away from the borrowing money for gambling. It's proven to be a bad.
Green Bay is on the road going to Baltimore, Smarge. I like this game.
Oh yeah, this will be a fun game. I think Green Bay's definitely there's definitely some value on Green Bay here.
Yes,
looks like they're
definitely seeing some value in Green Bay, because I think Baltimore's starting to fool people into thinking they're pretty good, and I think Green Bay is going to stop that from happening now.
Yeah, I think they're going to make a big stink in Baltimore this weekend. It's going to be ugly, and then it'll probably be a bunch of Joe Flacco hate. It depends on how the game goes down, but yeah, Green Bay's giving. It looks like the current line right now, it's about 3 points. So,
I mean, Green Bay's defense still hasn't proven they can stop anybody. So I think the over is the best bet in this game.
I'm not sold. Baltimore offense isn't exactly prolific. I don't know.
But I think Baltimore's offense can exploit Green Bay's bad defense. I think if you have Torrey Smith on your fantasy team, he's going to have a big week this week. Because I mean, I think Joe Flacco is a good enough quarterback to exploit a bad Green Bay secondary. And then we have the line this is like a record-setting line. The Jaguars of Jacksonville are traveling to see the Broncos of Denver. And the line opened at 28, and right now it's anywhere from 26.5 to 27.
Now, I thought they had the record. I thought Denver had the record last week.
No, this is the biggest point spread ever.
Oh, wow. Oh, maybe it was like the biggest total.
Oh, yeah.
The total last week for Denver was huge.
Yeah, well, the over-under total for this week is 55 on one place, 53.5, 53. Denver's just wow. They're so hard to handicap right now.
Well, yeah, and Jacksonville is so bad. There's no play here. That's the problem.
Well, let me ask you something, Joe Smarge. I heard this question today on another podcast. Somebody asked it of a gambling expert. They asked, okay, if you take Peyton Manning and you take whoever the quarterback is for Jacksonville and you switch them, what's the line then? You drop Peyton Manning on Jacksonville's team and you drop Blaine Gabbert on the Denver's team. What's the line become then?
I'm going to go with Denver minus 14. I think about halves the line, so probably like 14.5.
Dang, man, you nailed what the experts said.
Because Jacksonville is a team bereft of talent. I mean, they have a few guys who may be promising, starting to emerge, guys like Cecil, but even Cecil Shorts hasn't done anything this year. I mean, they're a mess. That team's a mess.
Justin Blackman's back, though. Justin Blackman caught a touchdown pass last week.
Well, that may help, and that's why the line, you can shorten that line to like 14.5, but it's not enough for them to beat Denver.
I think Peyton Manning would make Cecil Shorts and Justin Blackman look a lot better than Blaine Gabbert would. If you watch these poor receivers that get thrown to by Gabbert, I mean, he's always throwing the ball so high that these poor guys are stretched out and getting just decimated. And Peyton Manning doesn't do that to his receivers. He doesn't put them out there to be killed. And I just think Justin Blackman and Cecil Shorts would be so amazed that the passes were actually hitting him in the hands. I think,
it would be a huge improvement, LJ.
There are some actual people that can play football on that Jacksonville team. If the problem is their offensive line is just so bad.
That's exactly what I was going to say, LJ, is that, of course, you put Manning on any team that has a bad quarterback, and of course he's going to improve the team. But like I said, that O-line is not good enough for them to win games against teams like Denver.
Well, now we have to talk about Tampa Bay, because now that Josh Freeman is in Minnesota, he is out of the picture. He is gone. This is Greg Schiano's problem to deal with now. This is all in Greg Schiano's lap now, and they're playing Philadelphia this week in Tampa Bay. Does Philly keep winning this week after winning last week with Nick Foles? Is Michael Vick not going to play this week?
Well, yeah. How much does the road factor in Florida in Strip Club Alley factor in? And how much does how many Philadelphia players will end up with infections and stuff from being in the visiting locker room?
Smarge said, "Look out, Tampa Bay strippers! Here comes LaShawn McCoy and Deshaun Jackson. They're going to make it rain."
I think Philadelphia can get it done. I'm so disgusted. The whole situation in Tampa Bay, not like I'm a big Tampa Bay fan, but it's another classic case. Like, they shipped off Josh Freeman. Now, granted, he's not a top 5 quarterback. Maybe not even he's not even really a top 10 quarterback, but I think he could be a serviceable quarterback in the right situation, on the right team with the right coaching. And they just ran him out, and it's exactly what's going to happen. Is we're going to see that this is a lot more about management and Greg Schiano than it was about Josh Freeman not being a good quarterback.
Well, I think Schiano. My feelings are known about Schiano. I told you guys last week, and I think the week before.
We've been going on and on about this, LJ, week after week. That's how bad it is.
Schiano is just one of those guys that just rubs everybody the wrong way. And he thinks he's yelling at kids, and he expects people just to do exactly as he says. And if they don't, he gets all pissy and angry and everything else. And he doesn't know how to actually talk to people. I was watching LSU play. Les Miles is the coach of LSU. The kid comes off the field. He's playing Georgia. He made a mistake, and he threw an interception. The kid comes to the sideline, takes off his helmet, and, a lot of times coaches are going to yell, scream, be pissy. All you see is Miles in a nice calm way put his hand on the kid's shoulder and goes, "All right, what happened?" That's it.
Yeah, help him think it through and learn from his mistake. That's what you should do.
There's a problem. Let's fix the problem. That's it. And the problem was Schiano had no faith in Josh Freeman. He didn't think the guy was any good. And if you destroy a kid's confidence, because Josh Freeman's still a young kid. What is he, 23, 24?
Yeah, he's still developing, and I don't think he was really given
if you destroy a kid's confidence, and if you're week in and week out just yelling at him. I mean, I was watching this poor kid. Tampa Bay and New England played in the preseason, and the way the kid was throwing the ball and the way Schiano was yelling, you could just tell this wasn't working.
Yeah.
I hope Leslie Frazier is a much more nurturing coach, I guess you want to say. And maybe can help Josh Freeman in Minnesota, because right now Minnesota's starting Matt Castle. So they need something better in Minnesota. And hell, Adrian Peterson needs a better quarterback. It's just a shame that a great talent like Adrian Peterson is being wasted and they don't have a good quarterback. I'd like to see Josh Freeman work out in Minnesota.
Well, I think you may, LJ. I think you'll see him, they'll work him in. You can't just start. Matt Castle at some point will sort of get exposed a bit. And they can't just, or he might, you never know, he could get injured. But I also think that maybe Josh Freeman can learn a few things from Matt Castle, because Matt Castle's been in the league a long time. He's played with some great quarterbacks, in New England. So he might be able to help mentor Josh Freeman a bit, and you may see a better Josh Freeman when we finally see him on the field. But I think it'll definitely happen this season. Yeah,
Matt Castle has a master's degree in quarterbacking from the New England Patriots. Yeah. I mean, you can never discount experience you get sitting behind Tom Brady and listening to Bill Belichick and all those great coaches over there in New England, the guys that have come through New England. Good Lord, Joe Smarge, did you ever think that you'd see Cleveland only giving up a point at home versus Detroit? At the beginning of the year, did you think that would ever happen?
No. And I don't think Vegas didn't expect it to happen. This game opened at Cleveland was -7, which is insane. I'm not sold on Cleveland. I mean, really? I mean, Detroit's a good team.
Without Calvin Johnson, Detroit's not as good a team.
That is the big factor there.
And Calvin Johnson just practiced today for the first time this week, and he did it gingerly. So if he's a game time decision. So if you've got a bookie that'll take your bet at the last minute, and Calvin Johnson's or lock it in now and risk it on Calvin Johnson playing or not. I mean, if you can get a 1 point bet in right now, or a -1 for Detroit against Cleveland in Cleveland, I don't know. I might that would be a unit, at least a unit on that, right?
Yeah, I think there's value there. With that line being so close.
Yeah, at least I don't know. I mean, it's my brain working the way it works.
And there's actually a good fantasy note out of this discussion also is, Detroit signed Kevin Ogletree a few weeks ago. So he will, he might still be out there because he's not a number one receiver, but as it always happens when your number one guy is out, everyone kind of moves up a bit. So if Kevin Ogletree's out there and if you don't have any handcuffs for anyone to play for Calvin Johnson there, go grab Kevin Ogletree because he might do you some good this week.
Yeah, except that he's going up against that kid Hayden in the who locks down people. He's what the heck's the kid's name there? The defensive back for Cleveland.
Yeah.
Joe Hayden. Good Lord, is good.
But the thing is, LJ, with Detroit is that they have to account for Reggie Bush in the passing game a lot more than you would with other running backs. So that also shifts some of the matchups on the field. So they might be able to get some mismatches there. Now,
this is, I guess, putting a unit on Detroit is not a bad thing.
No, I like Detroit there, or put it if you have a teaser going, I think definitely.
Oh yeah. If you're looking at teasers. Well, speaking of none of that, let's talk about the playoffs in baseball.
Yeah, we got baseball playoffs are really exciting, LJ. We had the Red Sox just steamrolled Tampa Bay. I was a little surprised. I mean, I'm perfectly willing to admit at this point that the Red Sox team is just, they look almost unbeatable. I don't know. It's a little baffling, but I thought Tampa Bay would put up a little more of a fight. It got really ugly. For them.
Well, all year David Price has had some issues. I think he's got some arm issues or something was going on with David Price. He wasn't the same David Price. So without your number one starter being a number one guy, the rest of that team was just a little off. And then Will Myers was in a slump during the playoff series. Longoria was still Longoria. I mean, he still did what he did. But Tampa Bay had some issues. They still have some issues with hitting. They always have. They relied on James Loney this year and some other guys that had just crazy good years. But the Red Sox were just a better team. Overall, with Buchholz back and PV, and PV was a great pickup. He was worth trading Iglesias away. I'm sorry, but that's true. PV is a solid, I mean, if that guy's in your playoff rotation, you guys are looking great. So I'll put it this way. I'm thinking Red Sox Dodgers World Series, and I will enjoy every minute of that World Series.
Red Sox Dodgers, huh? That would be the best World Series to watch, LJ, for me. That would be excellent.
For everybody. I think if you're outside of St. Louis, Detroit, Oakland, Atlanta, or Tampa Bay or Pittsburgh, and I think everybody else, if you're a baseball fan, is rooting for the Red Sox and the Dodgers.
Oh, that would be an exciting that would be an excellent World Series, and the ratings for baseball would be huge because those markets are so big.
Through the roof. Plus, you'd have guys like Yasiel Puig and David Ortiz to market with Dustin Pedroia.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd have plenty of guys to market. You'd have plenty of guys to be out there being good representatives for the game of baseball.
Here's the thing, though, LJ, is the Cardinals are still like every year. They're always like, to me, in my mind, they're under the radar, and we get into the playoffs, and they're there. And
but the Dodgers can Kershaw can match Adam Wainwright, and then the Dodger hitting lineup is healthy, and they're better than the Cardinals. I'm sorry. The Dodgers are just the better team this year. And I'm glad the Cardinals are going away. Bye. I'm sick of them. I'm tired of them.
Every year, it's the Cardinals, I know.
Tired of hearing about the Midwestern blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Give me the bright lights and give me Yasiel Puig. and Hanley Ramirez and Clayton Kershaw and Kenley Jensen, and give me all that, the fun that is the Dodgers. Give me Magic Johnson talking to the guys in the booth during the game. Give me all of that stuff. Give me all of that fun stuff, because I'm tired of all that other stuff.
Yeah, I really wanted to see Pittsburgh move on in this one this year. I'm really just sort of pulling. I always like to pull for some underdogs, and it's just too bad. That's kind of, it's just too bad. Like, but they couldn't get it done. They didn't have the team.
Problem with underdogs is they eventually run into the big dog, and then they get chewed up, and then it's not competitive.
Well, it all depends on how your team is playing in that series, I mean, we've seen teams that are, you look at the Red Sox meltdown, for example. We've seen teams that are stacked with talent and that are the favorites, but they have to be playing at that level. And I think that's what Boston did, is they built a team of guys who are really gonna be there when it matters the most, especially. And they've stuck it out through so many games this year where they had to come from behind and stuff. They have the will. And a lot of it in these things is the will. It's really just the collective will of the team.
I would know. It's not the collective will of the team. It's putting your players in the best position to win. It's numbers.
But they have to go and do
John Farrell managing the team to make sure that they win. It's I don't know about the will to win. It's putting the guys in a position to win. And they have guys that can deliver, that can exploit lefty-righty matchups. That they had a relief pitcher that was just very good all year. Or for the last half of the year, the relief pitcher just played out of his mind. It's putting your players in the best position to win. It's old school, that's that whole feel thing versus that whole numbers thing. And the Red Sox are a good mix of numbers and camaraderie right now. They're getting along with each other really well. And John Farrell knows how to put players in position to win.
Now, do you think either of the other two AL teams here, Detroit or Oakland, because we don't, as of the recording of the show, they haven't played Game 5 yet. They're playing tonight. Which of those teams scares, if you're a Red Sox fan, or, as far as the Red Sox are concerned, which of those two teams scares you more? Who's the team that you don't want to play? Who's the tougher matchup?
I'd rather, of course, not play Oakland.
Yeah.
Because Detroit's not healthy right now. Verlander's had an issue all year with his arm, and Miguel Cabrera is a singles hitter right now. And with Miguel Cabrera in there, without a healthy Miguel Cabrera, it makes the rest of that lineup not as scary. And then on the other hand, Oakland is one of those teams that their manager puts them in the position to win. So I'd rather play a depleted Detroit team than a healthy Oakland team.
I think you're dead on, LJ. And I also, the Red Sox have the home field advantage, but you still have to win, some games on the road. And I don't really like the Red Sox in Oakland Stadium ever.
Yeah,
that's a place that's like Tampa Bay, where it kills hitters. So.
Now then let's put a warning out there now. Don't overbid next year in your fantasy baseball leagues for Sonny Gray. He's had a great postseason.
Mm-hmm.
He struck out 9 Detroit Tigers the other night. He's starting the game tonight. But you're going to see an overvalued Sonny Gray. He's for next year, and I have him on my team, so I'm keeping him.
Well, I think you got him at a cheap price, LJ, right? Or you just picked him up off a wire, so it's not going to cost you much to keep him.
No, it's going to cost you the $10 that it cost you.
So totally keep him, and you never know. He might get. I don't know what his contract is or any of that right now, but the A's are always wheeling and dealing, so he could end up somewhere. Which
they're gonna keep him. He's a youngster. He's one of their future guys. But don't overbid for him. No. He's not gonna. He's still young. Just don't let the playoffs cloud your judgment of a baseball player, because that's what's gonna happen next year. Everybody's gonna be talking about him next year. He's gonna be, we gotta focus. Sonny Gray just moved up in the rankings, and Sonny. But yes.
While we're on baseball, LJ, and since you're a Yankees fan, we don't have French here, I want to ask you, are you relieved that the Yankees signed Joe Girardi to this 4-year deal? Are you happy about that?
I like Joe Girardi. Joe Girardi knows how to manage a team. He does well. The players seem to respond to him well. He's not one of those He's a stern guy, but he's not one of those overbearing assholes either. And he's a numbers guy. He appreciates the numbers, knows how to use the numbers. He's a good manager for today's baseball.
It's a good deal for the Yanks then.
I don't think the managing was the problem for the Yankees this year.
No.
I think he did well with the guys that he had.
God bless Joe Girardi for putting up with all the circus that he did. I mean, if I was running that team, I would have walked out just from all the headaches and chaos with A-Rod and all the, and Jeter and all the stuff going on all around you,
I can picture Smarge. I'm irate. I'm leaving.
Well, and I think that's why the Yanks moved quickly to sign him, because they know, Hal knows, they know that he's a legit and very good GM. He's the kind of guy you want, running your, not GM, but managing your team. They have to fix the rest of it, and that's going to be a really interesting thing to see going into next year.
Now, are the Yankees going to trade away some top prospects to get David Price? Because he expects to be dealt this year. Expects to be dealt during the off season. Well, do the Yankees even have a chance to get him? Is really what I'm asking. He's a 28-year-old Cy Young Award winner with playoff experience. What are you going to give for him? Do you just roll up your farm system and just empty out all your best prospects to get him?
No, I think that's a terrible idea. Because we said before,
are you kidding me? You team up a David Price with a CC Sabathia and Michael Pineda, who's eventually hopefully going to be healthy, and you bring back Hiroki Kuroda, and you fill in and Ivan Nova. They need another top line starter.
Oh, they do, but they may have to pay too much for it.
They don't have it in their minor league system. They don't have a guy ready to jump up and be a number one. This is a guy that literally you slot in there and you can count on 18 wins a year.
Yeah, well, let me see here. How much time has he got left on the contract?
He's got 1 year left on the contract.
He's got a 1 year, so he's the 1 year rental, and you can try to extend him during that, try to sign a new deal with him.
Yeah, and they will sign him. And if you bring back Cano and make a trade for Price, the Yankees are instantly in contention for the division next year. I mean, that's it right there. That's it in a nutshell. The Yankees need to make the big deal because you can't sign the players anymore to make the big deal. Hell, the Yankees trade for Price and sign Matt Garza and keep CC Sabathia, and there's your rotation for next year.
It would probably be a pretty good rotation. I think CC is still kind of a question mark, though. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with him.
That's why you take some of the pressure off him. That's why you make him your third best starter instead of your number one starter.
I mean, I think I don't know the entire Yanks organization as well as I probably should. So a lot of it comes down to the specifics of the deal, I suppose. I mean, you're right though. They need that arm. That's definitely, what they need. One of the big things they need to do. What I'm wondering is what will other teams want for David Price? Who are the other buyers out there, and how will that affect?
Oh God, you're going to have a ton of buyers out there. There's teams out there that have a lot of good young talent that are going to make a play for David Price. If you're the Pirates and you've got the Pirates have a ton of talent and they have a chance to win with what they have now with Garrett Cole and Francisco Liriano and AJ Burnett. If you were to put David Price over there with the Pirates, just think about how much better they are.
Well, that may answer your question, LJ. A team like the Pirates may have more to offer than the Yankees do because the Yankees don't have all these young players.
Are they going to give up? Is Tampa Bay going to be bold enough to ask for Garrett Cole in return for David Price?
Now, that's a big question. My point is that the Yankees don't have the buying because there's no cash involved in this. Price just has the 1 year left, so it's not like the Yankees have the money to go buy out a big contract to get him, and other teams don't.
No,
it's going to come down to what trade chips you have.
They have some really good lower level minor league talent. Their single A team is one of the best. They have some really good young players. The problem is they don't have very many major league ready minor league players.
Yeah, all those guys are 4 or 5 years away, 3 years away, whatever.
Yeah, 3 years away. Yeah. They don't have guys that are just ready to make a play right away. And it's a shame because they could snag a guy like Price if they did, but they wouldn't need it then either. So, I mean, my Yankees are in flux right now.
Yeah.
It's a tough time to be a Yankee fan. That's all I'm saying. But I don't expect anybody to cry any tears for us because, well, we have what? How many World Series trophies do we have?
You have enough to fill an entire T-shirt, LJ, and remind Red Sox Nation that you have like 4 or whatever. So I'm not worried about it. The Yankees will be back. There'll be some. I dealt with the Yankees in the '80s when we signed Steve Kemp and didn't win any World Series then. So I can live with it again for a few years until they do it again. The Yankees will be back. The tradition will continue. I'm sure it will, LJ. I'm sure it will. I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up for us. I think we covered everything this week, so should have Frenchie back next week. And also, like I said, keep an eye out. Like I said, about 2 weeks, we're going to have the NBA preview and basketball fantasy preview as well, all rolled into one. We're going to bring our good friend Stephen A. Smith back. Smitty.
And then me and French are going to do a NCAA basketball preview too, because this year's NCAA basketball season is going to be phenomenal.
Yes, and we hope to get back in touch with some of the UMass stuff too. You know, they may have a shot again this year, and you know, it is sort of a local thing that's near and dear to us. So we'll be getting more coverage on that and whatnot. And we will. I promise everybody, next week we will get to some hockey because hockey is happening, and it's one of my favorite sports.
What? There's actual hockey.
Yeah, so they've been playing hockey, LJ. The hockey season started like a week ago.
Well, that's what that thing with the sticks and the ice is at the end of Sports Center.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, if you live in Canada, it's on at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So. But anyhow.
I was wondering what that was.
So yeah, I think that'll do it for us, LJ.
That's that sport that Gretzky guy played, right?
Yeah, the Gretzky, the Wayne Gretzky.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, that's going to do it.
All right.
That's definitely going to do it. So thanks again for listening. Check us out on our website, freeagentspodcast.com.